Okay, so obviously the first thing that I wanted to show, and I'm going to go ahead and do this even for people who aren't in the class right now. I'm going to leave this assignment up, the download the class file, because this is the file that you're going to be working with that we're going to see today in the video. Also, I do want to emphasize that I did copy out on YouTube yesterday the Adobe Animate review that I did at the end of class, and then the Bone Tool class video. So they are right here in YouTube, and they both have 0 views. Oh no, somebody's viewing it now, or there's 3 views there, but we have 0 views on the Bone Tool lesson. So if you guys are having any problems, please look at those videos. And one of the problems that we have is that with the Bone Tool exercise yesterday, I only have 8 people turned in their videos. So that's not good. So either a lot of you just gave up, or were confused, or forgot to turn it in. So I need you to do that today. So we'll take a look at these in a little bit. They actually are perfect for what we're doing. The Bone Tool is kind of difficult to get used to, but it is something you got to learn. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the difference between a classic tween and a motion tween. Okay, so some of you may have wondered, like, why, what is the difference, and why do we have to have a classic tween? Why do we have to motion tween? Why isn't it just one thing? So I'm going to quickly set up a stage. And by the way, you should pay close attention to this, because it's going to matter with all the animations we do from here on in. So on layer 2, I'm just going to make a new symbol. I'm going to make an oval tool, circle. And remember that while it's like this, I can go over into the properties and I can change the stroke. I can change the fill, which I am going to change the fill just so that it stands out more. I'm going to change the stroke. And then I'm going to modify, convert to symbol. So there we go. So it's off the stage. And in this first layer, I am going to do what we have been doing, which is create a classic tween. Okay, so as you know, I'm going to come up here to like frame 60 using this keyboard shortcut. And again, if you're having problems with this, I cannot emphasize to you, watch that Animate Basics video, or the review of what we've been doing, because I also zoom in on stuff. So I'm going to try to do that from now on with the video, zoom in on things that might be small on your screen. So I'm going to add a keyframe there, and then I am going to add a keyframe on the ball layer. And I'm going to, on this frame 60, I'm going to put the ball over here. Okay, and you know that now if it's in frame 60 there and it's in frame 1 there, if I click in here and say insert create classic tween, we're just going to have a linear boom, 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 straight thing. Now what you can do is I could come in here and I can say at frame 10, insert a keyframe and make this bounce here. Frame 20, now remember, I've already created the classic tween. I'm inserting new keyframes on that classic tween. And I'm just going to put in a new keyframe. And this is going to look kind of weird, but my point is, you'll see. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. I'm going to come to here and move it up. I think this is going to look insane, but the point is, I can insert keyframes into my already created classic tween. Okay, so, and I can make them, and as always, I mean, I can move those keyframes to change the pacing or the speed or whatever. So that's with a classic tween. So now we're going to create a motion tween. So I'm going to turn off the classic tween layer, make a new layer, and I'll call this motion tween. Oh, it keeps, you can't have a blank space in the name. It's putting in an underscore, the name of the layer. So now I'm on the motion tween layer, and I'm going to go to my library, which is over here. It's not in the regular place. guess I could try to put it back up here. So here's my library, and I'm going to drop this ball right here. So now I have not created a keyframe. I have my, the ball is here in frame 1, and there is no other keyframe on this layer, and I don't have any tweening done yet. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this layer, the motion tween layer, and I'm going to say insert, instead of create a classic tween, I'm going to create a motion tween. And you'll notice that I don't have the ball at the end, right? I just have it at the beginning. So I'm going to create a motion tween. And you'll see that it gives it this kind of like mustardy yellow sort of highlight. And what that means is the ball is here in frame 1. Now all I have to do is come here to frame like 10. I'm not putting in a keyframe. I just move my selector to frame 10, and I'm going to move the ball here. And it automatically puts in a keyframe. So then I'm going to come here to frame whatever this is, and I'm going to move the ball up here. And then I'm going to come here, move the ball down here. And you'll see that it's automatically inserting keyframes. Okay, so now, oops, if I come, actually I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to come to here, and I'm going to have it bounce off. So now it's going to play like this. Boing, boing, boing. Now that's all cool. Gives us pretty much what we were able to do with a classic tween, but without having to manually insert keyframes and all that stuff. But here's the difference between the classic tween and the motion tween. I can edit this pathway. And one thing that you may be wondering is, what are all these dots along the line? What those dots represent is basically like time, right? So the closer the dots are together, the faster something will go. And the further apart the dots are, the slower something will go. So for example, if I go ahead and hit play, you know, it goes kind of like that. So let's come back to here. And not only can I adjust it, but I can adjust like the arcs of how I want it to be. I mean, I can actually go crazy, and that's what I'm going to do just to kind of have fun with it. So when I come here, and if I really wanted to, I can pull this all the way down, and we can do that. And if I bring things closer together, like if I bring these points closer together, and let's see, it should be accelerating on the way down. You see, I like it varied in speed. And I know that it's kind of tough to see right now in the in your sharing screen preview, but on the YouTube video, it should be more evident. It'll be smoother. So that's the difference between the motion tween and the classic tween. So we should try to get away from using the motion tweens, the classic tweens, and start moving towards using the motion tweens. And there's one more thing I want to show you, because we can still grab this. Now this is going to kind of throw it out of whack because there's a ground and everything, but I just enlarged the ball there, and of course it's huge all the way across until I come over here into my last keyframe and shrink it down, and so now it'll change in size as well as bounce. So you can have an object look like it's receding in space, and it's just so much easier. Okay. Any questions on that? Cool, it's pretty cool. Now, the other thing that I'm going to show you is related to the bone tool. So I'm going to set up another new document. And now we looked at yesterday, I told you that we use the bone tool to link different symbols together. And of course, that's what we're going to be doing in a little bit. But you can also apply the bone tool to a shape or an object that you've drawn. And I'll show you what that means. So I'm going to draw a rectangle. Now, here's the problem. If I just grab the bone tool, now remember, I haven't converted this to a movie clip, I haven't converted it to a graphic or anything. It's still just a regular shape, which means I can still adjust like the stroke and all that stuff. But I'm going to try to put the bone tool on it. So here it is deselected. When I go to put the bone tool, if I start here, it's going to give me a warning. It's going to say the bone cannot be applied to a stroke, right? Because as far as animate thinks, I'm just selecting the stroke. Because remember, they're not joined together because it's not an object. I mean, I haven't converted it to a movie clip or a symbol or anything like that. The workaround for that is to select it all and then grab your bone tool. And so now I can do this. Now remember, this is just one rectangle. And I'm clicking and dragging. And now I can move these shapes. Now, of course, because it's actually deforming your drawing, you're going to get some weird stuff like that, you know, but you can do it. And all the other things that we learned about yesterday, the whole like constraining the movement of the different things. So if I go back here to the normal thing, and I come in here to frame 20 and insert a keyframe and mess with it. And then come to frame 35 and insert a keyframe and mess with it. Oops. And come to frame 45 and insert a keyframe and mess with it. Obviously, this is really difficult because I haven't constrained any of these joints, but the point is I just want to kind of show you some of the things that we can do. So we got that. So there may be times when you want to do it, and you can also do this on a shape without a stroke. So, you know, that's fine. Now, you might be wondering, well, since it's still technically just a shape, in one of these keyframes, can I adjust like the stroke, or can I make it, you know, can I adjust the color? Let's find out. So I'm going to select it and let's go to properties. Well, I can't do that because once you've applied the, once you've applied that armature, it essentially makes it like a symbol. It essentially makes it so that you can't make those kind of changes. So good question, just can't be done. So, and that's pretty cool. Now, the other thing that you might be asking, and we might as well try it. I'm going to go ahead and delete. Well, I'll just make a new document. It's just so much easier. I'll wind up having like 19 new documents open. So let's just say I come here to the rectangle tool, and to make this easier on myself, I'm going to get rid of the stroke. I'm going to make the stroke have no color so that I'm now literally just drawing the shape. And I don't know why I'm going to do this, but I can't think of a better example. So can you link separate drawings together the way you can link separate symbols together? Well, let's find out. Now, will this work like you have, like if these were symbols, which can't be like deformed and everything? Let's see what happens. since they are still shapes and since they are still working together, they still can be and are going to be deformed. So if you wanted to make a link, something with, a bunch of different things together that doesn't do this, then you're still going to have to use like the symbols, the movie clip, the graphic, whatever. So drawing the shapes, it's kind of weird. Now, if you wanted to draw like a wacky inflatable arm flailing tube man, that could be cool. You could do that with doing, just the shapes. So does that make sense to everybody? No. So what this skeleton is it was drawn in Illustrator, and we imported it from Illustrator into Adobe Animate. So what you're going to do is you have a background layer. Obviously, I have a colored background layer because you're not going to be able to see the skeleton on the white. So there's a background layer that I have locked. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to use this to create your bone tool animation today. So basically, and I'm not going to go through everything because I already have it done on another document. Basically, you're going to go through and there's the head, right? So you can select the head and all you have to do is go modify, convert to symbol. And this time, let's make them a movie clip. Let's see if that does anything different. But you're going to name each one. Like this will be like skull, right? So there, and that's going to be, look, it's in my library. This would be your ribs. This would be your upper left arm or right arm, however you want to call it, lower. Then you got your pelvis, all the way down here, the feet are all separate. Okay, but you have to convert these to symbols before you do anything. All right, and you'll see that this arm is like the lower arm, the hand is already attached. And I'm going to show you this. If you did, let's just say you did want to have the hand separate from the forearm. Okay, we're not doing that in this exercise, but if you wanted to do that, you could take this arm and you could say modify break apart. And let's see. Yeah. So when you break it apart, now I've got this is one thing, this is one thing, and all this stuff. So I could possibly grab these and go modify, convert to symbol, and call it like, hand. And then this would be my forearm. And then I could, I'm not going to do it here with the bone tool, but then I could move it, I could do whatever. But for right now, the hand is just joined to the arm, and the foot is basically joined to the shin area. So let's come back here, and actually I'll show you my demo. Okay, so we have all of our elements converted to symbols, and we've dragged them into the right place, and now we're ready to start our armature creation. So we're going to grab the bone tool, and I'm going to start right here around the heart area, the center of the chest. That'll be my pivot point or at least my point of origination for all of this stuff. So I'm going to click there and drag up to the chin. And you'll see that it's kind of like the no symbol. And then when I'm actually hitting something that can be done, it turns back to like the target. I could put this like that into the center of the head, but I don't want to do that because your head doesn't pivot from the middle of your head. So if I were to do that, that would happen. So that's why I stopped at the chin. So I'm going to go back again, start from the heart, go up to the chin. Then I'm going to go from the heart to the shoulder, to the other shoulder, and then down to, oops, and then down to the elbow. As you guys know, I'm using a different resolution on my screen, so that's causing some issues for me in the targeting. So there we go. I pull down to there, and I pull down to there. So, and then I'm going to go from the heart down to the pelvis area, and then from the pelvis, I'm going to branch off to the hip bone, the hip here, and then drag down to the knee area. And you'll see that once something becomes a part of the armature, the box appears around it. So that leg, the lower leg, does not have the armature. It's not a part of it, but now it is. So everything is there. So really, it's just a matter of making sure that you get to the, to the right point and then release. And remember that because there isn't another joint down here, my armature ends at the elbow. So we can still affect everything that's under the elbow, but it ends there. So now I have my skeleton built, and that means I can add a keyframe here on frame 1, which is automatically there. And then let's move to frame 10. So I'm going to come to frame 10. I'm going to insert a keyframe, and I'm going to do a pose. So I'm going to move his arm up. And when I move the arm up, you see that we haven't constrained our joints. And so that's going to be a problem. That means that we want to constrain or limit the amount of movement on some of our joints. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to go back. And we can see that by going to the properties menu. And I'm going to move it over here because I'm not sure what you guys can see on the screen. If my picture's in the way, I don't think it's in the way, but I'm just going to move it over here so we can see it. And the beams, the lines that connect each of the joints, we can apply a property to it. So for example, if I click on this beam and you see that my properties window changed, if I scroll up using my little bar here, the joint rotation is by default on. I can always click turn it off with this little switch. And so that means the joint that this is related to is not going to be able to move. So now we can just spin this arm. And the other thing that we can do on that joint is we can stop the joint rotation there. That's totally fine. The other thing that we can do is we can control from this joint, we want to control the amount that the arm can spin up and down. So we're going to do that here. We're going to constrain it. And you can barely see, if I mouse over it, it's going to mess it up, but you can see there's an arc there. Not that circle, but that arc that appears. And that arc represents how far up and down I can move the arm. And I can change that by selecting this and just kind of changing the numbers. But I'm going to go back. I'm going to put it down here into its kind of resting position. And we can see that. And I can always go back and then change this, the arc. And actually what's happening is, because I'm in my keyframe, every time I move it, it's like kind of changing the numbers there, right? So I'm going to go ahead and just hold on to this. And we have to click on the beam that goes between those two joints. And that's where we can say the -45. So if I wanted it to go up higher, let's go to -90. So that's at a 90-degree angle, right? If I wanted to go even higher, I can click on that beam. I'm actually going to move it back down here. Click on that beam, and it's at -97 right now because I moved it, but let's go to -140. So now I can move it all the way up here. Now what I want to do though is, I'm actually fine with that, but for the others, let's go ahead and constrain that. We don't want the shoulder to pop out of joint, so I'm going to turn off the joint rotation on that. And you'll notice that it is already turned off because these are kind of mirrored in there and they're connected to the same point. So when I do this leg, when I want to make this hip joint not move, you'll see that joint rotation is on, and you'll see that my resolution makes it hard to select these tiny lines. You see the joint rotation is on. If I turn it off on this side, it's hard to select these little lines. it's automatically off on the other side too. So that's why I don't have to deal with that, but I do want to constrain this joint. So I do want it to rotate, but I want to constrain it. And I want to do the same thing with this joint. I want it to rotate, but I want to constrain it. And now that that's done, and I guess we should probably constrain, I'm going to have to zoom in to get that one. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and constrain this joint right here. So I'm going to zoom out. And now I'm going to move my properties out of the way because I don't need that anymore right now. And now I can animate. So here's my frame 1 is here. And frame 10 is going to be out here. And I'm actually going to grab it and make it wave, right? So I've got that. And remember, if I want to bring it down to, if I want this to be a cycle, if I just want it to come back down, I can select this frame and I can control click on it and I can say copy the pose. And then I can come to frame 20, so that's the same amount of time. And I can control click and paste the pose. So now I've got this. It goes up, comes back down. Now let's say I want to move his head a little bit. Well, we can come anywhere really. And I can insert a keyframe and tip the head a little bit. And of course, the head is going to return to the up and down position because that's where it was in frame 10. And if I want to, let's go forward. Let's make another keyframe. And here, I'm going to, let's do that. Well, that actually looks dumb. I'm going to undo that pose. Oh, let me show you this. Also, like you see how it's rotating? I'm not worried because I know I can put it back to where it was. But if I want it to stop rotating, I can just grab this point and turn off the joint rotation. Now I can't move it. So now that makes it easier to just move like the leg and the arms or whatever. And I can always go back and if like, let's just say here in the future, in frame 30, if I want to turn that rotation back on, all I have to do is select it and turn it back on. So if I wanted to do something like this, and this is going to look really weird, but you know, so I can change it. And that's it. That's all you have to do. So when you're doing that, the main thing is just keep in mind you're still making keyframes. Once everything is linked together, you constrain the proportions or constrain the movement or turn off the movement altogether, and then you should have everything that you need.